Karoline Leavitt walked into a luxury showroom, ready to buy a $300 car. The manager smirked, saw her MAGA necklace, and threw her out, calling her money dirty. Others shopped without a word. Hours later, a red Rolls-Royce pulled up, and her husband stepped out, a billionaire. So who was really out of place? Before we dive into the story, please like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more people with stories that matter. Thank you. Karoline Leavitt pushed open the heavy glass door of Capital Luxury Motors, the faint chime blending with soft jazz drifting through the Washington, D.C. showroom. Her heels clicked on the polished marble, and the scent of new leather hit her as she scanned the gleaming cars. She was here for an azure coupe, a sleek machine she'd saved for, a treat for her and Nicholas after years of grinding work. Her MAGA necklace, a thin gold chain with a small pendant, caught the light as she moved. She adjusted her purse, its worn leather strap fraying at the edge, and approached a display model. Blake Thompson, the showroom manager, stood near a group of customers, his tailored suit crisp and his smile practiced. Mid-40s, with a slick haircut and a habit of glancing at his watch. He exuded control, spotting Karoline. His eyes narrowed on her necklace. His smile vanished, replaced by a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He excused himself from the group and strode over, his voice loud enough to carry, "Excuse me, miss, but we don't serve your kind here," he said, folding his arms. The hum of conversation in the showroom stuttered. A couple browsing a sedan turned to stare. Karoline paused, her hand still on the car's hood. She met Blake's gaze, her face calm. "I'm here to buy the Azure Coupe. I have the funds," she said, her tone even. Blake scoffed, stepping closer. "Your money's dirty. We don't need it." His words landed like a slap, and a salesman nearby chuckled, covering it with a cough. Customers shifted, some nodding in approval, others looking at their shoes. A woman in a blazer whispered to her husband, "About time someone said it." Karoline's fingers tightened on her purse strap, the leather creaking faintly. She straightened, her 5'4" frame somehow filling the space. "Is this how you run a business?" she asked, her voice clear, cutting through the jazz. Blake's smirk faltered for a split second, but he recovered, gesturing to the door. "Out, now. You're not welcome here." He stepped forward, ushering her like a stray dog. Two staff members flanked him, their grins barely hidden. The crowd parted as Karoline walked to the exit, her steps deliberate. A man in a polo shirt held up his phone, recording, his thumb unsteady. Outside, the late afternoon sun hit her face, and she stopped by her modest gray sedan. She glanced back through the glass, where Blake was already turning away, brushing his hands as if dusting off dirt. Her eyes sharpened, and she muttered under her breath, "This isn't over." She slid into her car, the purse resting on the passenger seat, its frayed strap curling against the leather. Inside the showroom, Blake clapped a salesman on the shoulder, laughing, unaware of the phone that had caught every word. Karoline Leavitt gripped the steering wheel of her gray sedan, weaving through Washington, D.C. Evening traffic. The city's neon signs flickered across her windshield, but her eyes stayed fixed ahead, steady and unyielding. The sting of Blake Thompson's words at Capital Luxury Motors lingered, but she didn't let it show. Her purse, with its frayed strap, sat on the passenger seat, a quiet reminder of the day's humiliation. She turned onto her street, the hum of the engine filling the silence. At her apartment, Karoline kicked off her heels and dropped her purse on the kitchen counter. The small space was tidy but lived in, with a stack of thank you notes from veterans pinned to a corkboard. She fired up her laptop, the screen casting a glow across her face as she scanned emails about the upcoming Veterans Fundraising Gala. Her fingers paused over a draft speech, one she'd written to honor soldiers, not to score political points. She leaned back, glancing at a framed photo of Nicholas Rio, her husband, his smile warm against a backdrop of their early days together. Years ago, she'd clawed her way up as Trump's youngest press secretary, a role that drew sneers for her age and her MAGA necklace. She'd faced rooms full of skeptical reporters, their pens poised like knives, but she'd learned to stand her ground without raising her voice. Today's scene at the showroom wasn't new, just another jab at who she was. She picked up the photo, her thumb brushing the frame. "I just wanted the car for us," she said softly. Her dream of a quiet celebration with Nicholas now tainted by Blake's scorn. Her gala, a chance to bring people together, felt heavier now. She wanted it to cut through the noise of 2025's divided America, to show that values like duty and sacrifice could still matter. Blake's insult, calling her money dirty, wasn't just personal, it was an attack on that vision. She grabbed her phone and dialed Nicholas. "They humiliated me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Can you step in?" His reply was steady, a promise without fanfare. She hung up, her fingers lingering on the phone, then reached for her MAGA necklace on the counter. She tucked it into a drawer, the chain clinking softly. A ping broke the quiet, a news alert on her laptop. She clicked, and her stomach tightened. A viral clip from the showroom was spreading, the bystanders' shaky footage showing Blake's sneer and her own measured exit. Comments flooded in. "Good for him. Standing up to her kind." "Read one." Another. "She didn't deserve that. Who is this guy?" Karoline closed the laptop, her jaw set. She didn't need the internet's pity or its rage. She needed action. She stood, smoothing her blouse, and pulled out her gala notes. Pages of logistics caterers, speakers, veteran stories spread across the table. She jotted a new line for her speech. "We're more than our differences." Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from a colleague. "You okay? That video's everywhere." Karoline typed back, "I'm fine. Bigger things to focus on." She set the phone down, her eyes drifting to the corkboard, where a soldier's note read, "Thank you for fighting for us." The city outside hummed, oblivious to her quiet resolve. She wasn't here to shout or prove a point. She'd let Nicholas handle the showroom. But the gala was hers. Blake thought he'd won, dismissing her with a smirk. But he didn't know her. He didn't know what was coming. Karoline tucked a stray hair behind her ear and opened her laptop again, the glow steady as she typed. The morning sun glinted off the chrome of a red Rolls-Royce Phantom as it eased to a stop in front of Capital Luxury Motors. The engine's low purr cut through the hum of Washington, D.C.'s traffic, drawing eyes from passers-by. Nicholas Rio stepped out, his tall frame filling the tailored lines of a charcoal suit. His polished shoes hit the pavement, a far cry from the worn boots he'd trudged in as a homeless teen 2 decades ago. He adjusted his cufflinks, his face unreadable, and strode toward the showroom's glass doors. Inside, Blake Thompson was mid-pitch to a couple eyeing a silver sedan. His slick smile and practiced gestures froze when he spotted the Rolls-Royce. "Excuse me," he said, smoothing his tie, and hurried to the entrance, assuming a VIP had arrived. The jazz playing overhead felt too loud as he swung the door open, his grin wide. "Welcome to Capital Luxury Motors. Sir, I'm Blake, the manager. How can I assist you?" Nicholas's gaze was cold, like steel. "I'm here for the Azure Coupe," he said, his voice low but sharp. "The one my wife was denied yesterday." Blake's grin flickered, his hand pausing mid-gesture. "Your wife," he stammered, the name clicking into place. "Karoline, the MAGA necklace, The viral clip now plastered across social media. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and he forced a chuckle. Oh, that was just a misunderstanding. Sir, let's get that sorted. Customers nearby slowed their browsing. Sensing the shift, a woman in a blazer nudged her friend. Whispering, a salesman polishing a hood stopped, cloth in hand, his eyes darting between Blake and Nicholas. Phone slipped out. Recording discreetly, Nicholas stepped closer, his presence filling the space. You insulted her, he said, each word deliberate. Called her money dirty. Now you'll sell me the car or you'll explain why to my legal team. Blake's mouth opened, then closed. He tugged at his collar. The air conditioning suddenly useless. Of course. Sir, no issue at all. Let me grab the paperwork. His voice cracked, and he gestured to a salesman, who scurried off. The crowd's murmurs grew, a low buzz under the jazz. A man in a golf shirt leaned toward his wife, muttering, "That's the guy from the video." Nicholas didn't flinch. His eyes locked on Blake. "I'll take the car," Nicholas said, pulling a card from his wallet. "And one more thing." Blake froze, halfway to the counter. "You'll attend my wife's gala tomorrow night. Veterans Fundraising Gala. Show up. Learn something." His tone left no room for argument. Blake nodded, his jaw tight, his mind racing for an out. "Sure, I'll be there," he said, his smile more grimace than grin. Nicholas turned, glancing at the azure coupe. "Good, get it ready." The salesman returned, papers in hand. Avoiding Blake's eyes, customers lingered, some pretending to inspect cars while stealing glances. A woman typed furiously on her phone, the clip already uploading. Blake's hands shook as he took the card, his authority slipping like sand. He'd thought yesterday was a win, a stand for his values. Now, standing in Nicholas's shadow, he felt the ground shift. Nicholas walked to the door, pausing to look back. "Don't be late," he said, his voice carrying. The jazz resumed its lazy rhythm, but it felt hollow, like a song out of tune. Blake stood rooted, the card heavy in his hand, as the Rolls-Royce's engine roared to life outside. Blake Thompson slumped into his office chair at Capital Luxury Motors, the door clicking shut behind him. The showroom's jazz was muffled, but the sting of Nicholas Rio's visit still burned. His computer screen glowed with the viral clip of Karoline Leavitt's exit, now at 200,000 views. The comments were brutal bigot in a suit. One read, "Thompson's done." Said another. He rubbed his temples, the weight of the morning pressing down. Outside, a salesman glanced at him through the glass, then looked away, whispering to a colleague. Blake's staff was split. A young receptionist, Tara, had clapped him on the back yesterday, saying, "You showed her." But now, others kept their distance, their eyes avoiding his during the morning huddle. He overheard a mechanic mutter, "That was a dumb move." Blake, the praise he'd expected for standing up to her kind, was crumbling. He clicked off the video, his jaw tight, and stared at the Azure Coupe's paperwork on his desk. Signed by Nicholas, the sale was done, but it felt like a loss. At home that evening, Blake sat in his dimly lit living room, a half-empty beer on the coffee table. His phone buzzed with notifications, each one a jab. He scrolled through X, wincing at a post-Capital Luxury Motors discriminates, boycott. His thumb hovered over a reply, but he stopped. A memory flickered last year. A wealthy client had praised his progressive values after a deal, fueling his snap judgment of Karoline's MAGA necklace. He'd thought he was taking a stand, protecting the showroom's image. Now, he wasn't so sure. He dialed his friend Mike, a car dealer across town. "She's just a MAGA pawn," Blake muttered, pacing. "I was right to shut her down, wasn't I?" Mike hesitated. Man, that video's everywhere. You sure you didn't misread her? Blake's grip tightened on the phone. He ended the call, tossing it onto the couch. Doubt gnawed at him, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Across town, Karoline stood at a press conference in a sleek government building. Her blouse crisp despite the long day. Reporters fired questions about the showroom incident, their pens scratching. Ms. Leavitt. Was it political bias, one asked. She smiled, her purse's worn strap visible as she adjusted it. I'm focused on the Veterans Gala tomorrow, she said, her voice steady. It's about uniting people, not dividing them. The reporters exchanged glances, some impressed, others skeptical. A camera zoomed in, catching her calm defiance. Back at his house, Blake pulled the gala invitation from his jacket pocket. The cream paper felt heavy. Nicholas's handwriting sharp. Be there. Learn something. He turned it over, his fingers tracing the edges. His co-worker Tara had texted earlier, don't go. Blake, it's a trap. They'll humiliate you. He stared at the ceiling, the beer now warm. Going meant facing Karoline and Nicholas, maybe admitting he'd been wrong. Staying meant hiding, letting the internet's judgment define him. He stood, grabbing his keys, and drove to the showroom late that night. The lot was empty. The azure coupe gone. Delivered to Nicholas, Blake walked the floor, the jazz off, the silence loud. He stopped at a mirror, catching his own tired eyes. His phone buzzed a new tweet from a local news outlet. Karoline's gala just got a surprise guest. His stomach dropped. He clicked. But the name wasn't his. Someone else was stepping into the spotlight. And Blake's absence might cost him more than he realized. Karoline Leavitt moved through the Veterans Fundraising Gala, her navy dress catching the glow of chandeliers in the Washington D.C. banquet hall. The air buzzed with clinking glasses, low chatter, and the faint strum of a live band playing patriotic tunes. Her purse, its worn strap now hidden inside, hung lightly on her shoulder as she greeted a gray-haired donor with a warm smile. Veterans in dress uniforms mingled with suited businessmen, and reporters hovered near the edges, notebooks out. Karoline's presence was steady, her voice cutting through the noise as she thanked a retired general for his support. Across the room, Blake Thompson stood out in a plain polo shirt, his usual showroom swagger gone. He'd arrived late, clutching Nicholas Rio's invitation, and was promptly assigned to assist Jake Miller, a young veteran in a wheelchair. Jake, barely 30, had sharp eyes and a faded marine tattoo peeking from his sleeve. Blake pushed the chair through the crowd, his hands stiff, avoiding eye contact with the guests. The gala's energy felt foreign, and his face burned from the memory of the viral clip still circulating online. Jake tilted his head, glancing up at Blake. You're the guy from the car place, right? He said, his voice blunt but calm. Blake nodded, his jaw tight, focusing on the polished floor. Jake didn't let up. I saw the video. Kicked her out for a necklace. Why'd you do it? Think you're better than her? Blake's grip on the wheelchair faltered, his knuckles whitening. He muttered, it wasn't like that. But his voice lacked conviction. Jake pressed on. I got judged too. Coming home, people see my bumper sticker and think I'm the enemy. Sound familiar? Blake flinched, his eyes darting to Karoline. She was laughing with a veteran's wife, her ease disarming even the stiffest guests. Her warmth seemed to pull the room together, and Blake felt smaller under the chandeliers. He pushed Jake toward a refreshment table, hoping to dodge the conversation. But Jake's words hung heavy. People like you judge before listening, Jake said, grabbing a water bottle. Blake's throat tightened, and he busied himself adjusting the chair, avoiding Jake's gaze. Nicholas Rio appeared at Karoline's side, his suit crisp as he leaned in to whisper, he's starting to crack. Karoline's eyes flicked to Blake, catching his discomfort as he fumbled with Jake's water. She nodded slightly, then turned back to a reporter asking about her gala's goals. "It's about the veterans," she said, her voice clear. "Their sacrifice doesn't pick a political side." The reporter scribbled, her camera lingering on Blake across the room. Unnoticed by him, Blake steered Jake toward a quieter corner, where a group of veterans shared stories. One, a woman with a prosthetic leg, talked about struggling to get hired because of her outspoken views. Jake chimed in, "Same here. People see my truck's flag and shut me out." He glanced at Blake, his tone sharp. "Ever think about why you shamed her? What made you so sure?" Blake's face reddened, his hands clenching the wheelchair's handles. He wanted to walk away, but Nicholas's invitation and the threat of his legal team kept him rooted. Karoline approached a podium, her presence drawing eyes. She adjusted her notes, the room quieting as she prepared to speak. Blake watched, his pulse quickening, Jake's questions echoing in his head. A server offered him a drink, but he waved it off. His eyes locked on Karoline. The band paused, and the chandeliers seemed to dim, focusing light on her. Blake's silence under Jake's steady gaze felt louder than the gala's noise, a truth he wasn't ready to face pressing against his chest. Karoline Leavitt stood at the podium in the Veterans Fundraising Gala, the chandelier light framing her as the band's final notes faded. The Washington, D.C. banquet hall was packed, veterans and donors leaning forward in their seats. Her navy dress was simple, her purse tucked backstage, but her presence commanded the room. She gripped the microphone, her voice clear. "Tonight, we're launching a new fund for veterans' mental health," she announced, her eyes sweeping the crowd, "because their sacrifice deserves more than words." Applause rippled, but a few elite guests in tailored suits exchanged skeptical glances, one muttering, "She's just grandstanding." Blake Thompson stood near the back, pushing Jake Miller's wheelchair, his polo shirt damp with sweat. The gala's energy pressed against him, and Jake's earlier words still stung. "Why'd you shame her?" Blake's hands tightened on the handles as he overheard the donor's sneer. Jake tilted his head, his voice low but sharp. "She fought for us when you didn't," he said, nodding toward Karoline. "Got benefits passed for guys like me." "Who were you helping?" Blake's throat caught. He'd dismissed Karoline as a political prop, but Jake's words cracked that certainty. Reporters nearby scribbled, their cameras panning the room. Karoline continued, her tone steady despite the whispers. "This fund isn't about politics. It's about doing right by those who served." A veteran in a dress uniform clapped loudly, sparking a wave of support. Blake shifted, his eyes darting to the exit, but Jake's gaze held him in place. He learned from a nearby conversation that Karoline had spent months lobbying for veteran benefits, a fact that hit like a punch. His worldview built on quick judgments and showroom bravado wobbled. Nicholas Rio appeared beside Blake, his suit sharp, his expression unreadable. He leaned in, his voice low. "You've got a choice." "Blake," he said, his words cutting through the applause. "Stay quiet, keep your job, and let this blow over, or step up. Admit you were wrong about my wife, and face the consequences." Blake's hands trembled. The gala invitation crumpled in his pocket. The viral clip's fallout boycott threats. Angry comments flashed through his mind. Admitting bias publicly could tank his career. But silence felt like a heavier weight. Nicholas stepped back, his eyes narrowing. "Choose fast," he said, then walked toward Karoline, who was wrapping up her speech. The crowd stood, clapping, as she thanked them, her smile genuine. Blake's pulse raced, his feet rooted. Jake looked up, his voice calm but firm. "You gonna say something, or just stand there?" Blake's mouth went dry, his mind replaying the showroom, his smirk, Karoline's calm exit, the phone recording it all. He'd thought he was right. But now the room's energy, the veteran's nods. Karoline's resolve challenged that. Karoline stepped down from the podium, shaking hands with the general. The band struck up a soft tune, and guests began mingling again. Blake pushed Jake's chair forward, his movements mechanical, the crowd's chatter closing in. A reporter's camera lingered on him, its red light steady. He stopped near the stage, his hands shaking as he let go of the wheelchair. Jake nodded slightly, as if giving permission. Blake took a step toward the microphone, his throat tight, the room's eyes turning to him. He opened his mouth, his voice shaky, the first words barely audible, hanging in the air like a spark ready to ignite. Blake Thompson stood at the edge of the Veterans Fundraising Gala stage, the chandelier lights glaring down like a spotlight. The Washington, D.C. banquet hall was hushed, the clink of glasses and hum of chatter gone. His polo shirt clung to his sweat-dampened back, and his hands shook as he gripped the microphone. Every eye in the room, veterans, donors, reporters, was on him. He cleared his throat, the sound sharp in the silence. I was wrong about Karoline Leavitt, he said, his voice cracking. I saw her necklace, her politics, and judged her. I thought I was being progressive. The crowd stirred, a low murmur rippling through. A veteran in a dress uniform leaned forward, his brow furrowed. A woman in a silk dress whispered to her husband. Skeptical, Blake's face burned, but he pressed on. I called her money dirty, kicked her out of my showroom. I wanted to look good, to be the guy who took a stand, but I didn't know her. I didn't even try. His eyes dropped to the floor, the weight of the viral clip and Nicholas Rio's ultimatum heavy on his shoulders. Jake Miller, seated in his wheelchair a few feet away, gave a subtle nod, his sharp eyes steady. Blake caught it, his throat tightening. He'd spent the night dodging Jake's questions, but now, under the lights, there was no escape. Karoline Leavitt stepped forward from the podium, her navy dress catching the light. Her face was calm, her purse left backstage, her presence quiet but unyielding. She stood beside Blake, not speaking, just waiting. Blake swallowed, his voice steadier now. I'm sorry, he said, looking at her. I was wrong. The room held its breath. Karoline met his gaze, her expression soft but firm. No excuses needed, she said, her voice clear. Just learn from it. The words landed like a gavel, simple and final. A gray-haired donor, who'd sneered at her earlier, stood slowly, clapping. Others joined, the sound building into a wave, veterans and guests alike rising. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashing. The moment already trending online. Nicholas Rio approached Blake, his suit crisp, his expression unreadable. He leaned in, his voice low. This wasn't about humiliating you, he said. It was a test, to see if you could own up to it. You did. Blake's hands clenched, still holding Jake's gala program, its edges creased. He nodded, his jaw tight, the weight of Nicholas's words sinking in. The gala wasn't a trap, it was a mirror, and he'd finally looked into it. Karoline turned to the crowd, her smile warm. This night's about the veterans, she said, gesturing to Jake and others. Let's keep it that way. The applause surged again, louder, as she stepped back, shaking hands with a veteran's wife. Blake moved off the stage, his legs heavy. The program crumpled in his fist. Jake wheeled up beside him, his voice low. Took guts, he said. No trace of mockery. Blake didn't reply, his eyes on Karoline as she worked the room, her grace pulling even skeptics to her side. A reporter intercepted Blake, her pen poised. Why now, she asked. He hesitated, then said, "Because she's more than I thought." The answer felt raw, but true. The band struck up a new tune, and guests began mingling again. The energy lighter. Blake stood by the wall, watching Karoline thank a donor. Her words from the stage echoed, "Just learn from it." The crowd's support was for her, but Blake felt the shift, a crack in the armor he'd worn for years. Blake Thompson leaned against a counter at Capital Luxury Motors, his tie looser than usual. As he walked a new salesman through a training manual, the Washington D.C. showroom hummed with its usual jazz, but Blake's voice was quieter, more measured. He pointed to a page titled Customer Respect, a section he'd written himself after the gala. On his desk, a small framed photo caught the morning light, him pushing Jake Miller's wheelchair, Karoline Leavitt smiling in the background. The image was a reminder, not a trophy, and he glanced at it often. Weeks had passed since the Veterans Fundraising Gala, and the viral clip of his showdown with Karoline had faded from the headlines. Customers still came, some whispering about the incident. But Blake didn't shy away. He'd started meetings with a new rule: no judgments based on appearances or beliefs. A young receptionist, Tara, rolled her eyes once, but the others nodded, sensing his sincerity. Blake wasn't the same man who'd smirked at Karoline's MAGA necklace, and the staff felt the shift across town. Karoline and Nicholas Rio cruised through D.C. in their azure coupe, the car's engine a soft rumble under the evening sky. Karoline's purse rested on the dashboard, its frayed strap replaced with a sleek leather one, a quiet upgrade. Beside it sat a folded thank you note from a veteran, its edges worn from being reread. Nicholas glanced at her, his hand on the wheel. "You did good at that community event today," he said. Karoline smiled, her fingers brushing the note. "It's not about me," she said. "It's about them." Earlier that day, at a small community center, Karoline had spoken to a group of volunteers, her navy blazer sharp but her tone warm. She shared her story, not the press secretary title, but the moments of being underestimated. Like at the showroom, a young aide, Sarah, hung on every word, her notebook forgotten. Karoline knelt beside her after, handing her a gala program. "Keep pushing," she said. "You're enough." Sarah's eyes lit up, and she whispered, "I want to be like you." Blake was there too, volunteering at the event, his polo shirt swapped for a plain button-up. He handed out programs to veterans, his movement steady but unassuming. He watched Karoline from across the room, her ease with the crowd a contrast to his own quiet presence. A veteran took a program from him, nodding thanks, and Blake felt a pang of purpose, small but real. He'd come because Jake Miller had invited him. A text that read, "Show up, keep learning." Blake hadn't hesitated. The sun dipped low as Karoline and Nicholas drove past the community center, the Rolls-Royce's red paint catching the last rays. Karoline's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Thank you for today." She typed a quick reply, her smile soft. Blake, back at the showroom, locked up for the night. The photo on his desk, the last thing he saw before flipping off the lights. He'd started volunteering weekly, small acts that felt bigger than his old bravado. The city settled into dusk, its streets alive with possibility. Karoline's work, Blake's change, Sarah's spark, they were threads in a larger story, one that didn't end with a single night. The azure coupe rounded a corner, fading into the sunset, the veteran's note still on the dashboard. Blake walked to his car, a program from the community event tucked in his pocket, its weight light but steady. Someone, somewhere, would carry this lesson forward. But who? A worn purse strap sat quietly on the dashboard, carrying more than anyone could see. Sometimes, the smallest things, a necklace, a choice, A moment reveal who we really are. In a world quick to judge, it's not the loudest who change us, but the ones who stay true. What do we miss when we decide someone's worth before they speak? If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a question, or just a pause, subscribe to Crossfire Justice for more stories that echo long after they end. Thank you for watching.